Hello, you. My name's Jonti.
And I'm Brandon, also known as B Squared, and this is This Week in Ink.
Each week we'll be wading through the Inklands to bring you the news and the views on all things Lorcana.
Coming up, we have our weekly features such as Main Street Market Watch and You Made Me Ink.
And we'll be discussing the latest topics and taking opinions from the live chat. Hello,
live chat. This week we have our first official look at set 3. As crazy as that sounds, I feel like set 2 has just been released into the wild and we're already looking at set 3 cards. But yeah, we're heading into the Inklands. Jonti, how does that seem?
I am obviously very excited. Before we move on and actually look at some of this stuff, I think it is worth pointing out that there has been a relatively mixed vibe, I feel, regarding the fact that set 3 is being shown off, is coming in February. And I'd love to kind of know how you and maybe how the chat feels about this as well. How do we feel about sort of set 3 being shown off now and it coming out in February?
I feel like showing it off right now is a little bit earlier than I would like. I feel like there hasn't been much breathing room for us to really soak in set 2. Some people may not feel this way because it's kind of like you said, I've heard mixed opinions too. The meta where it's at right now seems pretty fixed and it doesn't look like it's moving or budging too much. So in that regard, I think it's kind of fun to like start looking at new cards already so that we can kind of take our minds off of what's been dominating basically. But from a content creator standpoint, it's like, oh my gosh, already like I couldn't make anything about set 2 after reveals. without set 3 stuff coming. Now get ready for the reveal grind again, I guess, as cards are coming.
It looks like we're on that grind again. I feel like we probably won't see much now over the next couple of years, maybe a couple of weeks, maybe not even anything until the new year. But I don't know. I mean, I'm personally coming from a Magic background. And I'm kind of wondering why I don't know the names of set 4 and 5 at this point, and why I haven't seen a handful of cards from set 6. Because that's how, that's kind of, that's a great way of putting it there. Scott Goodrich in the chat there says, I feel like NTG's marketing cadence has prepped me for this. A teaser about 2.5 months out, and then a teaser later on. Yeah, I mean, we've seen cards in Magic from sets that aren't coming out until May, maybe next year, I think, sort of like 3 or 4 releases away. So, and I feel like the One Piece guys, the Bandai guys, they know what's coming a lot sooner as well. So I don't know. Yeah, it kind of feels weird. I personally have got no problems with the 3-month release cycle. I think that's perfectly acceptable. Every 3 months to have a set release. I feel any longer gaps than that, and I think the meta would get very stale.
Yeah, I agree.
Like you said, it's set 2 didn't shift that much in the meta, really. It basically made the 2 strongest decks from set 1 stronger.
Even stronger. Yeah.
So for me personally, I think a good shift in the meta would be helpful. So yeah, I'm excited for new cards, but yeah, it does feel like we haven't really took a breath from set 2 yet. But it is interesting to see so many people who are obviously new to TCGs are coming into Lorcana for the first time as a TCG player and being like, "There's new cards every 3 months. That's insane." I'm thinking, well, no, that's actually kind of normal. Like, that's how this thing goes.
Yeah,
Pokemon,
that's just how these rotate.
You come from a Pokemon background. They do quarterly releases,
it's
right?
3 months. Yeah.
So.
I think, God, I don't remember. I want to say it's 3 months, and I don't know if that includes the special set that comes out every year, or if that's like also somewhere in there. But yeah, I'm 99% certain it's 4 sets a year. And even like with Pokemon, they know cards at least 3 months before they come out, because I think things are starting to catch up with Japan.
Well,
but when I was playing, Japan had stuff before the US did. So we saw the cards and they just got translated, and so that's how that worked. But yeah, it's like you said, it's pretty normal for TCGs for it to rotate like this and for us to see cards so early. And I mean, honestly, just repeating what you said, I'm fine with the 3-month cycle. I think like the only thing that I'm getting used to is seeing cards so early. Like set 2 drops, we all get excited, we open stuff, and then the next week we're looking at set 3 already. Yeah. And so that can feel a little weird, but it's not so much the having 3 months of each set.
Perhaps if we just got the name and a couple of product shots. That would, just so, it's come in, here's the date for it, because a 3-month turnaround isn't that long. At some point, I would, as a store manager, I would be looking to order this soon, so at that point it kind of has to be, it has to be out there. So it's, it kind of needs to be out. It needs to be sort of, out there soon enough so that we can start ordering it. But we don't necessarily have to see cards necessarily. Although, then we get into the same problem that we had sometimes with some other card games in the past. You would have to get your order in for a set months before, in advance, and then they show it, and you're like, well, this set's terrible, and nobody's going to care. And that isn't really a problem. I don't think we're going to have with Lorcana for a while, because everyone, it's hot stuff, right? Everyone just wants it. So but there's definitely a thing, especially with a lot of the games that do some more ancillary sets and sort of little side products and extra bonus products and stuff. It's very difficult to know which of them is good or not. It's the big problem we have with Bandai now, because a lot of the time when we're ordering something, it'll be called One Piece Super Box 3, and there's no information on it at all. And you're like, well, is this a set of cards? We'll order 24 of them, and then it turns out it's sleeves and a playmat, and it's $200 or something, and we're just it really gets tricky. So I'm kind of happy that they're showing us what it is, and they're telling us it's the same again. It's 200 cards, there's a booster box, there's a trove, there's a gift set, and we can move forward with that. So A few people saying I'm very festive. Yeah, I do. This isn't like this. This isn't a set drop in. It's just this happens to be where the tree goes and where my computer is. I haven't sort of forced this to be here. This is just where it fits in my apartment.
I need to remember. I said last week I was going to bring I have a small Christmas tree that can fit on a desk. And I said last week I would bring in forgot. I need to do it next week before Christmas comes
You're looking
by.
like a right Grinch.
Yeah. I'll be honest, man. I'm not like a fan of the holidays a whole lot.
No.
Like it's just.
Do you know what? I'm not particularly either, but I have a 6-year-old in the house, so you kind of have to kind of lean into it a little bit for him. But we went and saw Santa 2 days ago. Yesterday. Yeah, we went. Yeah, you should get some Christmas ears. That'd be good.
I could do that eventually.
We went to see Santa yesterday, and Santa said, "What would you like for Christmas this year?" And Xander said, "A piano."
Ooh.
Which is the first I'm hearing about it. Because for the last month he's asked me for a telescope, which is what he's got.
Okay.
And I was like, oh really? A piano, eh? Cool. So I've been looking to see if I can find a cheap keyboard that, like a little electronic one you can have or something. So, which is always fun. But otherwise, we're starting to get into the Christmas spirit here. So, but yeah, anyway, let's take a look at Into the Inklands then. So I'm going to bring up the Gamer article here. This is an article from our good buddy Eric. This is actually written by Joe Parlock has put this together, but obviously Eric, a friend of the show, works for the Gamer, and here it is, Into the Inklands. I'm pretty sure they got. It seems like quite a few places got a little bit early notification of this coming out. I think Laughing Place was the first to drop it, which I kind of found that a bit weird because they're a theme park site, I think.
I didn't even know what they were.
Yeah,
but yeah, that was the first place that I had seen it.
I'm pretty sure they cover the Disney parks, but that's cool. God forbid you ever let YouTubers look at this stuff early, so we can not rush around like blue ass flies trying to get it ready. But that's fine. Whatever. You do what you do.
DMs are open, Rochelle. Just saying. Just letting you know.
So we got Into the Inklands, and as far as the full set itself goes, there's no real surprises here. I'm pretty sure we know it's 200 cards. Very much more of the same. Rarities are the same. I imagine we'll get a dozen enchanteds, although they haven't mentioned that yet. The real sort of big new things, I think, for me, one of the big things is that the sort of the Disney Afternoon stuff is coming. The cartoons that I think I want to say might be a little before your time, Brandon. Am I right in saying that? Yeah.
Yeah, I had no idea what Tailspin was, and then when I was told what Tailspin was, I was like, this sounds just like a fever dream.
Yes.
What is this?
Not only is it a fever dream, Tailspin, for those of you who don't know, was featuring the characters from the Jungle Book, but they could they flew planes. They were like it was like a air rescue service that they offered. Not only is it a fever dream, it's apparently a canonical sequel to the Jungle Book.
That's just like, it makes no sense to me at all. Granted, I haven't watched a frame of Tailspin, so I wouldn't be able to point out like what was real and what was some like fan art of the thing, but just Baloo flying an airplane after the Jungle Book is just what?
Yeah, it was a bit of a weird one. We're also the other one they mentioned is DuckTales, and we've seen some art of Scrooge McDuck. I imagine probably DuckTales you're a little bit more familiar with just because it was around a lot longer, and it had a really successful relaunch a couple of years ago as well.
I actually really like DuckTales.
Yeah, so DuckTales is really good. My boss Tim, he always said to me when Lorcana was very first announced, he said if there is ever Disney Afternoon stuff, they're gonna have to take my bank account away from me because I'm gonna spend so much money. So when I showed him this, he was pretty excited about this. So I'm a big fan of DuckTales and Tailspin and all of those, really. The Gummy Bears, and very excited to see lots more of them. And really interesting because it's it's not technically not the first stuff we're seeing from outside of Walt Disney Animation Studios because the Musketeers technically aren't Animation Studios properties. So, but it's the first sort of real. The first real sort of tie-in, or the first real sort of real stretch out from the original source material, I think. So,
yeah, we always questioned how far Ravensburger and Disney would lean outside of Walt Disney Animation Studios. I'm personally happy to see them leaning further, even further out. It's like the cartoon stuff because there's a lot of stuff in that realm that I would love to see in Lorcana that was kind of like, who knows if we'll ever see it or not in Lorcana until now.
Yeah, it kind of gives you precedence, right, for future things to come. It kind of says, well, they've done Disney, the Disney Afternoon stuff now. So, that's exciting to see. We haven't seen any cards from that yet. We have seen the art for one of the sets of sleeves and deck boxes is Scrooge McDuck, I think. So it's coming, and it's going to be super exciting. And then, other than looking at the actual cards, is there anything else from the set that's particularly sort of jumps out at you?
Not really. I was going to comment that I actually really like the consistency that we're seeing with each set in regards to products. Like, I know there was a little bit of a difference with the D100 set this past time, but kind of knowing like what to expect coming into each set, I personally think is really nice. Like knowing we're getting a trove, a gift set, some play mats, and, the normal 204 cards. I personally like it. Makes it easy for me to play in.
Yes, I agree, and yeah, the gift set was different. I'm glad that it was the same box, because the gift set is the only thing I've kept sealed from set 1 and set 2 so far. I have that's the only sealed product I've still managed to stop myself opening because I had a lot more and it's all got cracked. So yeah, but I'm glad that they look the same, and I hope that they eventually just keep doing that much and they just sort of stay and keep going that way. Stephen, thank you so much for the super chat. Enjoy your little avocado. I think that's an avocado. Dancing. I hope you enjoy your avocado.
I don't know.
Dancing.
Yeah, I think so.
I think it is. The gift set's the only thing I've kept sealed. I hope that they always stay that size, and I can just eventually have them all sort of lined up, and that'll look pretty cool.
Oversized cards.
Yes.
So happy we're getting more oversized cards. I was not an oversized card fan when I played Pokemon. I just didn't really like them so much. But not only are we getting oversized cards, we're getting an oversized card of my favorite little Stitch.
Oh, Stitch.
So I am like so excited for that and to crack that open. That's all I have to say about that. Very excited.
I'm not personally too fussed on oversized cards, although I do have the Stitch portfolio from set 1. And need to fill it up, so I'm happy for at least another 6 oversized cards. I think there's space for.
Yeah.
But yes, no, I like the fact that the product is consistent. It's a really good way of putting it. Yeah. There we go. Stephen's just popped up on the screen there. Thank you for that, buddy. The chat's obviously a little ahead of the stream. So they showed us some. Oops. To save that. Let's see if I can open this up so we can see it a little bit better. They showed us a few of the products here. We did get some better images of the products in French today. We'll take a look at the gift set later because it does show a couple of new cards. But this stuff is a little bit blurry, unfortunately. But it does show us there. You've got the 2 starters, the booster box, the sleeves and cases, and then the mats. With Stitch, awesome looking Stitch there on the mats, a different Stitch to the oversized cards one that we'll look at in a moment. So you've got at least 2 come in.
Looks like a space cowboy Stitch. It's like a little cowboy hat on top of him.
Oh yeah, and obviously like space ski, and he's got all his arms out. He's in full alien mode there. And the other mat there showing Moana. This is weird. I actually really liked that mat until I saw the full version of it.
Oh really?
Yeah, I actually thought it was. I thought just her looking out to the sea was quite cool. It actually shows Tafiti on there as well, which is cool. It's fine, but I actually just quite like the idea of her. Like I really like landscapes on mats. I'm a big fan of a landscape on a play mat rather than a character, and I thought this was the closest we got so far to just like a good landscape. And but it actually has Tafiti on there, which we'll look at again in a minute. So All right, let's have a look then. So we've got a few cards to look at.
Right.
4, in fact, before we look at the gift set, which is technically 5 and 6, if we can sort of make them out. But yeah, first of all,
Yeah, I couldn't.
we'll have a look at it because they're blurry and they're in French. I've got a bit of an idea of what they say, so we'll take a look. But first of all, we have Minnie Mouse, Funky Spelunker. She's a 1-costed inkable 0/3 for 1 lore, Dreamborn hero in steel. She has the ability Journey. While this character is at a location, she gets +2 strength. She's uncommon with art by Grace Tran. Oh man, I thought we'd get more than a week before I had to start doing this again.
Yeah, exactly. Like, chat may remember, how many weeks has it been since we've had to do card reveals? Because it can't be more than 2. Like, I thought we would get maybe a month of these out before we had to go back into the card reveal, segment of the show, which, like, don't get me wrong, cards are fun to look at, but it was nice to have discussion.
It was after, especially because the last one of them we did, it was the huge dump of the set release, so we just spent 4 hours nearly looking at the cards. Excuse me. So yeah, I think we had, it would have been 2 weeks, but I think we missed one. We took a week off, so 3 weeks. So we did like 2 episodes without them, but yeah, it feels like we're diving straight back into it. So Minnie Mouse, and this is the first card we've seen officially that cares about locations. I don't, even with the very limited knowledge that we have on locations, we'll look at our first location in a moment. Even with our very limited knowledge of locations, I don't think this is very good.
I don't either. Like, the only thing that I can see making this card good is if there's a location that just happens to have a good ability. And even then, it's like, I don't know. Would you, like, is it just better to play a good character that, maybe, like, if the location has a good ability on its own, then you probably don't necessarily need Minnie Mouse to be the card that you play. It might just be some other good card that you can move to the location or whatever.
I suppose it really depends on how. Yeah, because the way locations work is that the number in the top left corner of them, that's how much you pay to get a character there. So you can play this on turn 1. You could play a 1-drop location on turn 2, and you could use the second ink to move this to it. So basically, you have it's a 2-costed 2/3.
Yeah.
For 2 lore, I guess, assuming the location has 1 lore on it. But then you would get the lore from the location anyway. It's very difficult to compare locations to stuff that we already have in the game just because of how differently they work. But basically, you need a 1-drop location that really wants something to be on it for this to be good. And then it may well be good just because it's a 1-drop that cares about locations. As opposed to any other 1-drop in the game. But arguably, perhaps a 1-drop evasive like Pascal would still be better sat there than this would. So I don't know about this one. But interested to see how it this is almost a vanilla that cares about being at a location, basically, because natively there is no benefit for having characters at locations.
Right.
I'm right in saying that, aren't I? So we're still figuring a lot of this out. but if it's a vanilla character in a vanilla location, neither of them gain anything from being with each other.
It's a waste of ink to move a character to a location at that point, essentially. Because there is no benefit.
Yeah. If this was base 1/3, would it be broken? Yes, because then you're getting a 2-drop Rafiki, basically, because you could play this on 1, and then on turn 2 it could get to a location and swing. So 3/3 would be very good. It's a 2. I mean, I guess a 2/2. Do we have a 1-costed 2/3 in the game? We don't, do we?
No.
so technically, go ahead.
The problem is it's not really 1 cost, though. It's like, unless there's a location that comes out that doesn't require any ink to move to, then maybe this sees like some play in a faster build. Like it would have to be a 2-drop location or 1-drop location, and it would have to not require any ink to move. And even then, you're spending 2 cards to get a 2/3.
Yeah.
And then like plus the location, but is it just better to play a second character rather than have a location? Because at least your character can interact with the board and can sing and like all this other kind of stuff.
Would you play a 2-costed 2/3 with Rush?
A 2-costed 2/3 with Rush. I don't know. We play 2-costed 2/2 with Rush with Queen.
Yeah, so that's what this is. This is a 1-cost.
But it's a 2-for-1.
Yeah, but the location sticks around.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm playing devil's advocate.
Isn't it still a 2-for-1 though? If you have to play 2 cards to get rid of 1.
Well, you know, if you the Queen very often trades, but a 2/3.
Yeah, 2/3 might survive.
Stick around, and the location sticks around for the next thing to go into it, and it starts gaining you a lore. That's the other thing to be said. If we see a location that's a 1-drop 0, well, it's obviously a 0, but you know, a 1-cost 4 willpower, I kind of think it'll just see play because it just starts gaining you lore, and it's going to take a few turns before they can deal with 4 willpower.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second because that's kind of my take on the one location that we've seen. Yeah. But yeah, I think at least right now what we know about locations, one of their benefits is that the one that we've seen has high willpower and it's automatic lore gain every turn until it's banished. And so there's a lot of like decisions your opponent has to make and like, is it worth exerting all their characters to get rid of this location? Do they just ignore the location and try to race you down? Yeah. So I don't know.
We'll get to that in a minute. But first of all, let's look at the next one. Piglet. Have you got these up? Do you want to take this one?
Sure. I actually don't have these up, but I have it up right now. We have Piglet. That's Peter Pan. That's not Piglet. Okay, Piglet, Pooh Pirate Captain, an inkable 2-cost amber card. With 2 strength, 2 willpower, and 1 lore. Piglet has the ability, and I'm the captain, that says while you have 2 or more other characters in play, this character gets +2 lore. Piglet's a super rare, which I think is pretty cool, and also a Dreamborn hero pirate captain. And I think this is kind of exactly what Amber likes to see. It's already, like, we already see Amber playing really wide. They like to play really wide, and a card that can quest for 3 on turn 3 just because you play a bunch of stuff on the board, you know, seems pretty okay.
I think so as well. 1-drop this on turn 2, anything else on turn 3.
Yeah,
I think it's pretty good. Love Stitch Rockstar. You know, it's difficult to really know how set 1 cards are going to be still relevant with such a new mechanic coming in. But as it stands, I mean, this gets smashed into Rockstar so fast.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it's really good.
Like a bodyguard build as well, you know, like an Amber Steel bodyguard. This sits behind bodyguards fantastically well. Yeah, I think it's good.
Yeah. Yeah, inkable card. It has a little bit of counterplay in steel with like grab your sword and any of their damage options, but especially in some sort of aggro build like an Amethyst Amber that we see plenty of right now in the meta, is like it definitely has a place in that, I think, for sure.
But I think the thing is that people are saying, "Oh, I wish it had more willpower and less strength." The problem is that there has to be an answer to that aggro build, and there has to be quite a hard and simple answer to it, because otherwise it would just run away with the game. Like if this didn't get crushed on turn 5, or with Singer's turn 3 by Grab Your Swords, it would be the tier 0, the only deck that ever saw play. If there wasn't a simple answer to this deck just running away with it, it would be way too broken. So me personally, I see something like this, I see it as a 2/2. It makes perfect sense to me, because any more, it would be very, very broken.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think there's much room for change in this card without it starting to like get a little bit too good
Yeah,
for what would be safe. It
yeah,
reminds me a lot of before the game came out when we would play with like 40 card decks, and the best deck was Maleficent on 1, Maleficent on 2, and then like Hercules on 3. And it was
yeah,
like you quest for 6 on turn 3,
yeah.
and you basically couldn't win because we didn't have grab your swords
Because
at the
Gravity Source
time. There
just
was
didn't
no way to get
exist.
around
Yeah,
it.
I remember that I still refer to it now as the coconut meta when we all thought that coconut basket was good. But the coconut meta when it just everyone thought the game was just aggro and there was like, well, why? There's nothing. You're never going to be able to do anything about this. Yeah, and then aggro's always been there as an option. It's always been it's always been up there as a viable option, but it's never really broken out as one of the top tier decks for that reason, I think. Yeah. Next up then, Peter Pan, a 4-costed inkable 3/3 for 1 lore in Emerald. Lost Boy Leader, Dreamborn hero with the ability I came to listen to the stories. Once per turn, when this character moves to a location, gain lore equal to that location's lore. That's a rare card again with art by Grace Tran. I'm pretty sure Grace Tran is like the headline artist of the set, because we're getting a lot from her, and it's all fantastic as well. So amazing art from Grace.
Absolutely.
So another card that cares about locations, and I think this is playable. I think this one is more impressive than the Minnie Mouse one, especially now we know how locations work and how characters can interact with them. Basically, this is almost a goat. This can come down and gain a lore the turn it comes down, and then just I suppose after that it is just almost a vanilla, really, unless you have multiple locations out that you can sort of bounce him around. I assume that once per turn is there to stop it really getting out of hand.
Yeah, because I think it would get out of hand at that point. There would be some way that you could just bounce them 6 times in a game. And
if you have 2 locations out, as far as I am aware with the rules, if you have 2 locations out, this says pay 1 ink, gain a lore.
Yeah.
Assuming they are similar to Forbidden Mountain or 2 copies of Forbidden Mountain, this basically says pay 1 and gain a lore, which is too good.
Yeah.
But I think this seems good at the minute as far like what we know about location seems okay. I would maybe like him just to have evasive or something, just to really sprinkle on that spice of him or something. I don't know. It's going to be very difficult to tell, though, I feel.
It would be flavorful, especially because I'm pretty sure this Peter Pan is wearing the same outfit as the other Dreamborn Emerald evasive Peter Pan. That's, I think, a 3-cost. I think it's a 3-cost 2/3 with evasive. But yeah, it's a little bit difficult to figure out right now how good or bad this can be. But I agree. Like any card that the turn it's played can gain you some lore is probably pretty okay. I mean, we see Goat doing great right now, and that's what that's exactly what Goat does. And being able to play Peter Pan and move him to a location the turn he's played, because characters don't have to wait to dry before they move to a location. If you have a location that has more than 1 lore, especially being able to just play a couple ink and then move it and immediately gain 2 or 3 lore in 1 turn, seems pretty good in my opinion.
I mean, technically, you'd want to play this on. Well, this is the tricky thing. You want to play this on turn 5, really.
Yeah, after turn
least
4.
At least 5, right? So if there's a turn 4 location that costs 1 ink to get there, and with 2 lore on it, that's really good. Yeah. Once percent character moves to a location, gain lore. Sorry, I'm trying to understand chat. A location you played this turn. I'm not sure what that means. Sorry. Yes. So it does kind of depend on how locations plan out. At the moment, we've only seen 1, and I feel like the one they've showed us is quite boring as far as like ability goes. It's a relatively sort of plain one, but it does kind of show us all that we need to see.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
It gives us a little bit of an idea of what the role of locations will be. It's Forbidden Mountain, Maleficent's Castle, an Amethyst Inkable 2-cost card with 6 willpower, 1 lore, and 1 cost to move to the location. Obviously, no ability there, just some flavor text. But essentially, for anybody that doesn't know, the location just kind of sits here. It doesn't exert, it doesn't ready, or anything like that. Because it has willpower, it can be challenged and banished by opposing characters. But the fun thing about locations is the lore pip looks a little bit different, if you'll notice. And that's because locations don't quest themselves. They just naturally gain you lore equal to however many lore pips are on the card at your start of turn, basically during your set phase and the ready, set, draw phase. So this being a 2-cost card with 6 willpower seems pretty okay to me, because especially if you're on the play, you can drop this on turn 2. And I'm having a hard time figuring out how the opponent's going to get rid of this card on their turn 2 before it comes back to your turn and you gain a lore.
I mean, unless there's a very cheap banish location.
Yeah.
There isn't really, is there? Yeah, you're having to, a Maui kills this. That's turn 5.
Yeah. Do you want to pay 5 ink to get rid of this? Location?
And by then, it's gained you 3 lore. Do you think there's room for 2 lore on this card? Yes. Yeah, I do.
Yeah. I agree.
I don't think it goes up and down. I think it goes across.
Okay, that's interesting.
And I think it can probably go across as far as they like. I'm not saying it will, but yeah, I think you could get 2. I think we might even see a 3. But yeah, you're right. I mean, 2-costed Inkable 0/6 that quests for 1. Would you play that? Right? Like that's what it is.
Yeah, maybe. And,
and technically it's
that synergizes with other cards really well. Like Peter Pan can move to this and gain a lore, I think, on turn 5 or whatever.
I think. Oh, sorry, I realized what Stephen was saying there. Sorry. Yes, you can move Peter Pan to a location you've played that turn. Yes, you can. So basically, once Peter Pan's out, as long as you play locations with with enough ink to move him to it straight away, he just got to keep bouncing around. Yeah, that's really good actually. But yeah, I think you're right. 6 willpower is not to be sniffed at. There's a lot of 6 willpower stuff in the game. It's just difficult to shift. And especially on turn 2, there's just nothing even close to it.
No. And I've seen some people argue that locations are basically like a worse character because it can't, it doesn't hit back, it doesn't challenge back. And I kind of I get where they're coming from, and maybe they're right. But the way I look at it is this is a thing you put on the board, and your opponent either has to waste a turn and challenging it to get rid of it, if they can even do that. Maybe it takes more than 1 turn, or maybe you have to wait. And by doing so, they're exerting all their characters, leaving them vulnerable to whatever else you can do to those characters. And they're basically just wasting a turn because
not gaining lore themselves.
Yeah, and you're stalling them out. And then you say, okay, well, it's only for 1 lore. It's not worth doing all of that just to stop 1 lore. Okay, then great. Then I just played a card, and I'm going to gain 1 lore for 6 turns until we get to a point in the game where it's worth you playing something to get rid of it. That sounds actually pretty decent in my opinion.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think the only thing that'll really stop this just sort of kind of running away with it is if we see a lot of location destruction, and not even just location destruction, because let's be honest, we have item destruction in the game now, and even with how rampant items are, it doesn't really see much play.
No, so I think there's only 5 cards of those two. I think there's only 5 cards that can actually interact with items.
Not many, and not many of them are being played. The only one I'm really seeing in lists now is the Benja. Just because he's a perfectly acceptable body as well.
Right.
But yeah, Sorry, just a quick question. I got into Lorcana on Saturday. Are locations brand new to the game? Yes, Racket. These are coming in set 3, which is going to be February. So this is our first sort of sneak peek at these. And yeah, this is going to be a new mechanic coming to the game in February. So that's why we're all sort of talking about it today. But yeah, so I completely lost where my train of thought was. But yeah, so item description doesn't really see much play. So I feel like we're only going to see, we might see stuff that, when this character is played, banish, location, whatever. But, it's still got to be a decent character for that to warrant play, honestly.
Right. That's the thing that sort of surprised me when we started seeing locations is after all the initial questions about how locations worked were answered. Steve did a Q&A on this past Friday, answering a lot of the questions so that we kind of knew how things worked with locations. Once all that got answered, immediately people started asking about how the current cards interact with locations. And every card, other than cards that have Rush, Reckless, or Challenger on them, don't interact with locations. They all specify chosen character or character card or item card. So like, you can't heal Forbidden Mountain with Rapunzel. When you play Be Prepared, all the locations stay on board. They're not banished. Any cards that just like hard remove stuff or deal ping damage, like none of that stuff interacts with locations right now. So I fully believe we'll be getting more cards in set 3 that do interact with locations to like balance them out a little bit. But still, knowing that all of those things, any of the location interaction that we're going to see has to come in the next 200 cards that we see, it's kind of interesting for the reasons you mentioned. Like, we have item cards right now and most of them don't see played because it's just a little too much of a silver bullet for cards unless they're just already good, like we saw with Beast in set 1, now Benja in set 2. That even if we see a couple specific location cards, locations would have to be rampant in order for them to see much play.
And I feel like they're probably not going to be. I feel like locations will probably sit somewhere like items and songs are, in the, maybe decks might run 1. 2, but there will be a location deck, and it'll just be the 2 colors that have the best locations and the best characters that deal with them. And I think it'll do well, but not so well that everyone else has to suddenly start playing whatever the location Dragonfire is, basically.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, overall, I think it's a really interesting mechanic. I am surprised to see a whole new card type so early, if I'm honest. But I'm not against it.
No, I've said since before set 1, since before we saw the cards, I love the idea of a location card. I'm one of those people that when I'm playing the game, I like to imagine all the characters like being in a place, duking it out. we're all in the Illuminary, whatever it is. And so the idea of somebody playing a location and like the world around me shifting, and now I'm at Maleficent's castle, I think is super cool. I loved it. I'm surprised at how locations work more than I am seeing the card. I was also surprised to see location cards, especially because I thought it was kind of funny when Maurice's workshop, I think, came out.
I even said it on this show. I was like, well, that means we're not getting locations.
Yeah, exactly. It was like, well, that's not an item. That's a location. So I guess we're not getting locations. And then here we are, like 3 weeks later, we see location cards. So I'm happy to see them. I think it's super fun. There's a lot of locations that I'm excited to hopefully see. And I think it'll be another avenue also that can be explored creatively in the realm of Lorcana. We'll see more of the Inklands, and there may be like location cards that are, unique to Lorcana and not from other movies and things. So I'm extremely excited for the 3rd set for sure.
I completely agree. Blitz says, please no good locations for Ruby Amethyst. You might be looking at one. As I know it's a common, and I know we really don't understand fully where the design space is going for this, but the Ruby Amethyst build, maybe not the bounce heavy build, but the sort of the traditional Ruby Amethyst, the sort of classic control Ruby Amethyst, I don't think they would hate playing a few of these.
I don't either.
They're going to occupy your opponent. while they're getting rid of them. They're going to gain you a little bit of early game lore, which is something you're not doing in Ruby Amethyst. They survive your own Be Prepareds. I don't. Yeah, I genuinely think this could be.
If people are playing Sorcerer's Spellbook and they're playing Sleepy's Flute, I think this gets played for all the reasons you just said. Yeah.
So I don't know. I think you might be looking at a playable card here. It'd be really interesting to see. I'm trying to think what of the first run of stuff we've seen for each set, how much of it is actually playable. So let me think. Those
Cinderella is one of them.
So set 2, we got the stout-hearted Cinderella. I can't think what else we got in that first dump.
I can't either because I remember everyone
Wizard.
freaked out over Belle.
I remember Honey Wizard.
Oh yeah, Honey Wizard was one of them.
Isn't it's a common.
It's just a vanilla.
The Belle doesn't really see anywhere near as much play as we originally perhaps thought it would. I'm gonna have a look now. Rise of the Floodborn announcement, because they just came with the announcement, I think, didn't they?
So I'm gonna, while you look at this, Jim Hawkins says it's probably gonna end up being the wardrobe / Gontu of location since it's a vanilla location. I just want to say that scares me because we've already talked about like how this location doesn't seem bad, and it's like, yeah, this is a vanilla location. This is probably as basic as the locations are gonna get, and they're probably only gonna get better. So who knows? We may be moving into a locations meta with set 3.
And my big worry is what I hope we don't end up having is that the only way they can shift the meta is with a new mechanic that makes the older cards redundant. Like, that's not a healthy game design space. So I hope that's fine for now. You know, I feel like there was an article, I forgot to open it, but the title of it was something like, game developer, Lorcana's developers have built the game from the ground up with locations in mind, and we know this. We know the first few sets have been built together, and I still feel like we're still perhaps playing with, demo versions of the game, technically, with these coming, but... Yeah, what I hope we don't find is that locations are the meta for the next 3 sets until we get curses, and then curses are the meta for the next 3 sets until we get, whatever else, So that's my only worry. Locations are evergreen, so hopefully it isn't a mechanical meta 3 set. Yes, they have said that locations are going to continue, and that's fine. What I mean is, I hope that like the new mechanic isn't the only thing that shifts the meta. I hope that it's just a different sort of pacing and stuff like that is what changes the meta.
Yeah, it's an interesting balance to take, because on the one hand, you want a new set to enter the game and bring cards that people play and shake things up so that you're not playing against the same 2 to 3 decks that you were playing for the last 3 months.
Yeah.
And this set 2 kind of did that because bounce came in. We're seeing a lot of bounce play. Singers got support, which is good, because that's something else I was going to say. So, one thing that I like to see in game design is not only new stuff coming in, but existing stuff getting more support, so that hopefully, if it wasn't played much before, now maybe it can shine. In this case, songs were already seeing plenty of play in set 1, and they just got even stronger. So set 2 kind of did this, just in the wrong way, because it buffed both of the top decks of set 1.
Well, you say about the top decks. The Ruby Amethyst deck has changed quite a bit, really.
It's a completely different deck.
Yeah, the color combination is the same, obviously, but the actual deck has shifted quite a bit. Do you think then that, as well as locations or whatever else, set 3 will also give us a bit more discard support or resist support or floodborn support? Then all these kind of new deck archetypes that have started to form in set 2 but aren't quite there.
Yeah, maybe. I think for sure we'll see floodborn support, because I just expect to see floodborns in every set from here on out.
Yeah.
But I don't know. That's interesting. Probably because we don't actually have all that many. I don't know. We we have a few resist characters, not a ton. And after looking at some of the discard stuff, I feel like there was less discard than we were led to believe, or maybe there's less playable discard stuff than we thought there was going to be.
I think it's playable discard. Is that there's actually quite. You could pretty much build a mono emerald discard deck. It wouldn't be very good.
Yeah. No,
you could. Yeah, I think. Yeah, the fact is that not that much of it is playable, and the stuff that it really relies on, which is basically Prince John at this point. Yeah, you're. There needs to be other finishers. There needs to be other sort of payoffs for the deck outside of a single card. I think really.
Yeah.
All right. Should we just have a brief look at the gift set? I know it's not on the doc.
Sure.
But it's technically new cards.
Yeah.
Somebody's asked, are we talking about spoiled cards? We're not. No. We're just going to be covering officially released stuff. And that we know that stuff's out there, but we've no real interest in looking at that. So let me bring this up big and see if I can have a read of it. Okay, so the Stitch has evasive. I know that much. So he's a 5-costed inkable 3/3 for, I'm gonna guess that's 2 lore. It might be 1. I haven't done the overlay thing. I can't quite see where it sits. Yeah. So yes, he has evasive. That's insubstantiable. We know that one. And then I think it's that if he's at a location. No, I'm so sorry. He has ward. And if he's in a location, he has evasive.
Whoa. Okay.
Yes, that's what I think he is. Yeah, I think he's a 5-costed 3/3
That's so
that
funny.
has ward, and then if he's a location, he's evasive as well. Art-wise on these look amazing. Yes, they do. I feel like Tinkerbell looks like she's holding some kind of like lore. It looks like a little
lore piece. Yeah, it looks exactly like that.
Which is really interesting, and I love this, like the steampunk cog type aesthetic. I'm so down for it, and I love that like pretty much every character we've seen so far has got binoculars or like a little sword or a, you know what I mean. Like I absolutely adore this adventures out there kind of vibe. I think I dig it so much more than Rise of the Floodborn as like a theme goes. I think this is awesome.
Yeah. Looking back at thinking back on the Floodborn cards, I don't know that I could tell much of a theme just between the cards looking at them. Other than maybe they looked way different than how the first chapter portrayed characters to be more familiar, I think. With things like Honey Wizard and like some of Cinderella Stout-Hearted, like just completely different than you were expecting ways for characters to look, maybe. Yeah. But I agree, the end of the Inkland stuff looks really cool. I like the adventure.
This looks like. I mean, I always said that I eventually I'd love to see like a jungle set, a space set, and maybe they might not go that sort of. Sort of specific, but this is a jungle set if you ask me. Like every other picture is like they're going through the leaves and pulling out their binoculars. I think it's awesome. So yeah, I think this is all speculation because my French isn't amazing, but I'm pretty sure that's a 5-costed inkable 3/3 for 1 lore with ward, and then it gains evasive when it's at 8. And obviously the words are slightly cut out and stuff as well, but I think it's when it's at a location it gains evasive. So if that's how it is, I think that's pretty good. Basically, it's it's almost unstoppable quester, right? Like it's
exactly.
It's about as
I think it's really
game.
funny. It's so funny to me because as far as I can tell, Stitch is wearing like a Hawaiian shirt and sunglasses, so he just kind of looks like a tourist. Yeah, it's like he's just disguised as a tourist going to different locations. Like that's so funny to me.
That's awesome. Yeah. And then the other one is a 5-costed inkable 3/4 Le Fée Cochette, which is the little bell fairy. I think it literally translates to, but obviously it's Tinkerbell. And I think. She says when you banish an item, you can instead put it into your inkwell exerted.
Huh.
I'm pretty sure that's what she does.
Okay.
Which is interesting because it's almost a non-bow with a lot of the other item synergies from set 2, which is a lot to do with the recursion of Porpsicle,
Yeah.
and things like that. So it's interesting to see, really. But this is a bit of a guess. Half the words are unreadable. It's a bit blurry, and my French is basic at best. So, but I think she says, when you banish an item of yours, you can instead place it in the inkwell face down and exert it. So, less obviously good because it really depends on what sort of items we get. What sort of items support we get. One thing I will say though is that I think it's one of the first cards we've seen I must preface this by the fact that I may not be reading this right, but it's one of the first cards we've seen, I think, that looks at when you banish an item, not makes you banish the item. So suddenly, do you know what I mean? All those items that say banish this item to do ...
Yeah. I didn't catch that.
Yeah, if this is out, it then makes them ink, which is good, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that definitely sounds like a little bit better, because I was understanding it as you can use Tinkerbell to banish, or I don't know, it's more of an ability. But I see what you're saying now. All the items that say banish this to do X, instead of being banished when Tinkerbell's out, can just go to the in as ink.
Yeah, exactly. So she's looking for items being banished and not banishing them herself. Which actually makes it quite good. And I still don't think it necessarily makes those one-hit wonder items such as what was the mallet in set 2 that gives something rush, croquet mallet. I don't necessarily know whether it makes that sort of stuff playable. Espion says Benja counter. It completely depends on the wording, whether or not it says when you banish a item, or whether it's when one of your items is banished. But yes, if it was when one of your items is banished, yes, it would be a slight Benja counter. You get the ink out of it rather than it just being banished.
Right.
So two interesting ones there. I mean, I remember when we first saw Hades and Mulan on set 1's gift set, and we both thought they were incredible, and they were amazing. And neither of them really see play. I still hope that one day we can do a villains deck with the Hades at the top end of it, but it's not there yet. So, but I don't know. Yeah, interesting. I thought we'd have a quick look at those before we moved on. Anyway, and next up we have You Made Me Ink. This was a tough one this week, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think because we both just wanted to talk about Bounce again.
Bounce is just kind of taking over. So
which is the one thing that we probably really is sort of agreeing with us. But one of the guys I play with on a Saturday has tweaked his Steel Songs deck, and he's added in 4 copies of Sleepy's Flute after it's starting to do quite well in certain decks. And do you know what? It's pretty good. Sleepy's Flute. I know we mentioned it last week as part of our price watch, but yeah, I think we should maybe just have a little look at it now. So it's a 2-costed uninkable item in amber. It says a silly song. You can exert it, and if you play a song this turn, you can gain 1 lore. It's a rare card. By a name I can't read because it's not zoomed in enough. So, Sleepy's Flute. I've said this a few times on this show and in my own videos as well. I always said that Steel Song, not that it needed help, but if it ever got a way to just generate lore from songs, then it would be completely broken. And then even then, I saw this card and was like, oh yeah, I don't know. But actually, a lot of the time, the early to mid game of this deck can comfortably put one of these down and not lose that much tempo, because it is singing the songs that it wants to play, and therefore has the ink spare. which is one thing I don't think I quite figured out in my head when I first saw this card. I was like, oh, 2 for an uninkable item. It's it's a real bad tempo shift. But actually, when you're singing your 2-drop, so you can just put this down and exert for a lore straight away, it's actually pretty good.
Yeah, and it's one of those cards that even if it's not played until a little bit later in the game, it's just sort of this slow burn. Like I've realized in the Steel Song decks that like to play this card, sometimes they can get going pretty quickly with lore, and then maybe they slow down a little if they can't find their whole new worlds or whatever to like get back, refill their hand. And these just kind of help them like slow burn their way to 20. And unless you're playing Benja, there's really like it comes down and now you're on a clock because like they're gonna continue to quest.
I played a game with my friend, and he got 3 of these down and was Agestin for 3 lore.
Exactly.
7 or 8,
Well, that's what I was gonna say is most games that I see Sleepy's Flute, I see more than one. So it's like, as soon as multiples start hitting the board, just like you said, you're playing Be Our Guest and you're gaining 2-3 lore at a time. And, it doesn't take very long for them to, or it doesn't take many times of them doing that before it's just kind of too late and you can't catch up or finish the game out.
And you're right, the lack of item banishment that's in play, can really be a problem against this. I remember that game, he got 3 of these out and won the game. Pretty sure I guessed it and just got 3 lore and that was it. And there was nothing I could do. And I sat there going, oh God, we desperately need some sort of like banish all items card. And he leant over to me and he said, you still wouldn't play it. I was like, you're right, I wouldn't. So you're absolutely right, I probably wouldn't.
I wonder if we'll see it in set 3.
I'm surprised we didn't get one in set 2.
I agree that I think it's something that would be good to see. Maybe not in steel even. Just give another color a chance. Because we're seeing items get so popular now or at least the items that gain lore between Sorcerer's Spellbook and Sleepy's Flute. And like I don't blame you for not looking at the card and immediately saying, oh, this gets played in Steel Song decks, because even within the community it's still pretty debated. Like I see a lot of people arguing whether or not it's worth a spot in the Steel Song deck. I think people are leaning a bit more towards playing it than people still saying not play it, but there's a lot of debate around it still. I'm in the camp that I think it definitely, you could run at least 2 of these in the deck. If not just 4 of them, and songs just kind of be the thing and you win passively through the items. But
and like you say, songs is a really great value engine early to mid game. You're getting out, you're playing Grab Your Swords and Whole New Worlds a lot quicker than you'd be able to. You're playing your hand out, so you get a lot of value off the Whole New Worlds. A lot of the Amber removal songs. The world's most, what is it? The world's greatest Criminal Mind, all that kind of stuff. You can play, your Teeth and Ambitions. You can play on, on Curve with the Cinderella if you're playing Ruby. But all of the sorry, not Teeth and Ambitions. The steel. What are the cheap steel songs? The Strength of
Let the Storm Rage On.
Let the Storm Rage On. Those 2. There's a lot of value there, but it does suffer a little bit in the later game. Is what are your there aren't really any like song-based big threats. You're just kind of you're ending up going into more of a Stitch build or something like that. Just to kind of get lore on the table. So this definitely does help you there. In turn 8, 9, 10. Be Our Guest isn't really going to be getting you a hell of a lot of value, but if you've got 2 of these down, suddenly it might be
it's a ton of value. Like you find the late game Cinderella or Stitch that you need and gain 3 lore all for 2 ink. Like how crazy is that?
It's pretty insane. So so for that reason, Sleepy Fruit is this week's You Made Me Ink. It can it's not quite as bad as Bounce, but it can still fuck off. So. All right. Do you want to have a quick look at the markets?
Yeah.
I'm gonna bring up the Floodborne booster box, and I'm gonna be right back, so you can tell people
Okay,
all
I'll
about
talk about it.
the Floodborne booster box. Go.
Yeah, so I have it pulled up here. I don't know if you guys can see the market price history yet, little graph, because I have a little bit of delay looking at the other screen. But boxes are coming down right now on TCG Player, at least for me. The market price is around $200, which is basically, at least personally, the most that I would be willing to pay for a boost. Well, not what I'd be willing to pay, but it's the most that I think is reasonable to pay for a new set booster box, especially one that might be hard to get throughout the first chapter, even through all of the hardship of finding product and booster boxes. And even with Rise of the Floodborn, I stuck to that price. And so now to see this booster box, and we'll look at the first chapter booster boxes, which are actually even lower than this in a second, seeing them come down to 200 and even getting lower than 200 and even trending further down makes me really happy to see. I think it makes the game a lot more accessible. We're seeing singles drop because of it too, which I think is also a really awesome thing. So like ultimately I'm pretty happy with this. I just see the line continue to go down, and so long as it stops eventually, I think that, that's a good thing. We're getting closer and closer to MSRP.
Well, that's the only thing I will say is from a store point of view is it needs to stop at MSRP, because if it goes lower, then it's much less interesting for a store to look at carrying it, and then you get a whole other set of problems then, when stores are back. So I am more than happy for this stuff to go to MSRP and just stay there. So
yeah,
let's hope that happens. But yeah, 206 is the cheapest one at the minute. The market price is under 200. Yeah, 198. That's pretty crazy. And that's without. That's as far as I know, without a reprint or anything yet. That's just the launch, and the LGS launch and the big box launch, right?
I believe so.
Yeah, so I don't think that's terrible. And then even better than that is the first chapter booster box.
Yeah, these are looking great.
Yeah, currently market price of 159.80. I mean, that's almost MSRP. What's MSRP, like 145?
144, 145.
Yeah. So that's pretty solid at that point.
Like this is definitely, like, especially this, I would pay my LGS this in a heartbeat, to get a box. I wouldn't even think about it as close to MSRP. A little bit of extra, I'm so happy with a price like this, honestly. I think it's very accessible.
Yeah, and there's a few available at that price as well. It's not just an anomaly. And like you said, it's affecting singles prices as well, most notably in our golden girl herself, Rapunzel, gifted with healing from first chapter. Now the market price is just shy of nipping under $30. There's currently one available here for $29 and a penny.
When I looked at this today, my jaw dropped because I already have my Rapunzels. I don't need to look at it. I look at some market stuff occasionally, but after the emotions of watching these cards skyrocket, some cards getting up to $70 at one point a card, maybe even more than that, Rapunzel being one of them, shooting up way up there at one point, to now being basically half what she's been for pretty much the entirety of Lorcana being released.
I mean, that
is
blue
like
line
it
there,
just makes me so happy.
Yeah, that blue line there is about as straight as a line can get on something like this, right? Like she has pretty much consistently sat at $50 to $60. For the entirety of it. So is this I think Rapunzel, interestingly, is twofold. I think it's partly the product's availability increasing. I also think she's dropped out of the meta quite a bit, honestly, as well.
A little bit.
So I think that could be part of it. Is she's definitely seeing less play, which I mean, I've took her out of my deck. I was only running 3 copies. I still need one. I might just go and buy one at this point. But yeah, I was running 3 copies of her in my deck. I managed to pull a third one. But I've taken her out now. My Ruby Amber deck has become Ruby Amethyst, but it isn't the gross bounce version. I just want to put this out there. I always play off meta because I only play really locals. So I
I
wouldn't
wouldn't blame
whatsoever.
you if it were.
Yeah,
I
no,
wouldn't
I
blame
don't,
you
I
if it
don't, I
were.
don't, I don't like it. I always build off meta. My set one deck, my set one deck was a sapphire emerald. It was like the high five thing,
Mm.
Like I never play the very top deck because I think it's because I'm a hipster. What can I say? I don't I
I
don't
do the
like
same
it.
thing.
Yeah.
I've spent the past probably week like pairing ink colors together that aren't meta right now to see if I can find something that works, and I'm
Yeah.
just getting so frustrated finding
Yeah.
nothing
Yeah.
that is beating
It's
everything
weird, isn't
else.
it? The people who spend 8 hours a day doing this know more than us,
Yeah.
right? Like, yeah. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So, but no, I took out the amethyst. I'm playing Ruby Amethyst, but it's actually all revolved around Rush, and it's using that Peter
Mm,
Pan's shadow. So it's
okay.
basically controlling the board through Rush stuff. So the top end of it is, I mean, it's still playing, the 4 copies of the new Lady Tremaine. It's still playing a lot of that sort of stuff, but it's playing 4 copies of Shere Khan, 4 copies of the Peter Pan
Hmm.
Shadow, and 2 copies of the Fairy Godmother, the one that gives stuff
Oh
plus
yes.
3 and bouncing back. So it's
Yeah.
just a really sort of fighting heavy deck. It's very similar to the Ruby Amber one I was playing. But the big problem I had with the Ruby Amber one is that people just didn't exert anything and just
Yeah.
waited till they outpaced me. So with the Amethyst, I've actually got 4 copies of the 2 elses in there. So the D23 one, I
Yeah.
forget what she's called, that lets you just exert something.
Hmm.
I get so much value out of her, just being able to turn something sideways to start smashing into them, and then obviously she's a good
Yeah.
shift target for the big one that lets me do it to 2 things. So I'm having a lot of fun with it. Like I say, it's not meta, but it's it's doing well at locals. It's gonna go in its first paper tournament on Saturday, and we'll see how that
Ooh.
goes. But yeah, I'm not expecting much, but I'm just hoping it sort of at least shows up, and we don't go 0-X. So we'll see.
Yeah, you're braver than I. If I'm going into a tournament, I'm grabbing whatever the best deck at the time is
I
and
mean, I
playing
could.
that.
That's the thing. I could do it. I could build the. I would have to pick up a couple of Cinderellas, I think, to do Steel Song, but I pretty much got everything
Hmm.
else. And to do the sort of real bouncy Amethyst, Amber, Ruby. Yeah, I think I've got it all. I don't think there's anything I need to go and get
Hmm.
to do that. But I don't know. Yeah, I don't like doing what everyone else
Feel
does.
nasty, doesn't it? Just
Yeah,
play
it
it.
feels cheating. um, Talking though, how's Jonti already almost at 4K subs? I don't know. We keep trickling up. It's slowed a little. Hit subscribe if you haven't already, and then
I
go into the comments and look at Brandon's one and hit subscribe on there as well.
Yeah, please do, because I posted a video yesterday and lost subscribers. So I don't know if
Yeah,
I just
that's always fun. I did that. I did
Yeah.
that when I put my review of Wish up the other day, and
Oh, really?
people were like, no, stay in your lane.
Yeah. And also, I'll address this while doing this. Espeon said that you picked up a pair of aerial singers from B Squared store on TCG Player before the stream. That is me. That's not somebody
Oh,
pretending to be me. I opened a TCG Player store, I guess, this week because I just have a bunch of extra cards I need to get rid of, try to recoup some funds,
oh yeah,
and it's been pretty awesome. So I
yeah.
appreciate the support. And yeah, if you guys find me on TCG Player,
Oh yeah, I'll
it's
plug it.
me.
How does that work then? Do you have to like say the price, or do you say I'll go solo under the guy ahead of me kind of thing, or what? Like how does it
Is
work?
As far as I can tell, you just set a price and you say how many of the copies you have and you upload it. And like they make it kind of easy because they'll give you what the lowest listing is currently. They'll give you I think the market price or like the median, and then they'll give you what the last sold price was. And then
Right.
you can like click a button and it'll automatically set your stuff there, or you can input, whatever
Yeah.
number you want. I've just been putting the lowest one because like I'm not trying to make a like
I'm just
specific
trying to
thing. I'm
shift
just
them.
trying to make back. Yeah.
Oh,
So
that's
it's cool.
interesting
It's
stuff.
fun. Leave a review if you do the store because like there's like levels to the thing, and I can
Yeah.
only list 100 cards right now because I'm level 1, and I have to get reviews before I can list more cards. There's this whole thing to it, but
Okay.
honestly, it's been fun. I was like pleasantly surprised at how many sales there were the
Oh,
first day that
really?
I like put everything up, and it's just fun to like
And it's
package
been
the cards and mail them off.
yeah, like it's been worth your time, sort of like packaging
Yeah,
them all
I've
up and stuff.
I've made more money. And granted, not a lot of money, like less than $150, but I've made more money in 2 days on TCG Player than I've made in the past almost year on YouTube.
Oh my God, we're in the wrong business. We're out of
So,
here.
yeah. Yeah. So this will be my last episode, guys. I really appreciate it.
I got things to do. I got cars to sell. Fit Girl Fit Fam says, when do you ever stay in your lane? I know, right? That's my boss, by the way, commenting that. So.
Oh, wait, what? Oh.
Yeah.
Sunscorch. I need to go leave a review. I bought some cards from Sunscorch because they also put some cards up, and I didn't leave a review. So you know what? You called me out on that one. I'll go do a review after this.
Like for like.
Yeah. There you go.
The only thing we got to look at then is we talked a little bit before about how good Cinderella is. Cinderella Ballroom Sensation, the enchanted version, is now. Is this right? She's now the second.
Whenever I posted it, I think it was this morning or yesterday. Yeah, I was surprised. I was looking at the enchanted prices because we hadn't looked at them in a little while. I was interested to see where they were landing. I know some of the cheaper enchanteds have gone under $100 now, which is really cool to see, I think. But I was pleasantly surprised because I was looking at Elsa. Obviously, Elsa from the first chapter has always been the biggest front runner, most expensive card.
By quite a bit as well, right?
Yes, yeah, like a couple $100 usually. And I was just surprised when I was looking at her. I saw Cinderella directly below her and didn't realize that Cinderella from this set was doing so well or so expensive, being the second most expensive enchanted card.
Some of them are really come right down, eh? $75 for the Namari.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, shouldn't look at this because now I want to go and get them.
Yeah, this is what I've been waiting for for all these to come down so I can finally scoop some up, hopefully.
Yeah. I'm happy to say that the 3 I have are all in the top 10 price-wise, so.
Oh, now I need to look because I only have 2. I've pulled, how do I get out of this? I've pulled 4, but I only have 2. I have to pull it up real quick. We'll go enchanted. Here we go. Let's see. High to low. Still don't have the Stitch. I pulled a Tinkerbell. I don't have anymore. But I did get rid of it at a higher price than it is now. So I guess that's good on me. I do have an Aurora and I have an Aladdin. Aladdin's very low, but Aurora's kind of in the middle.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, no. Sorry. Between the 2 sets, I've pulled 6 enchanteds. But most of them have been lower. I pulled a Hercules. The first one I ever pulled was an Artful Rogue, Mickey. And then the Tinkerbell. Yeah, and I think that's all of them.
I mean, the real takeaway here is if anyone pulled any of these at Gen Con, they should have sold them the second they opened them.
Yeah.
Because they've never been close, right?
No. Yeah, it was like, I don't remember how many thousands of dollars I remember hearing the first Elsa selling for. It was like $8,000 or something, I think. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
I remember listing my Artful Rogue at like $1,300 the morning that I pulled it because that's how crazy things were selling for. Unfortunately, nobody bid on it, but yeah.
Just insane. But yeah, no, I'm happy. I'm sticking to the one a set. I ended up trading for the Mickey, but I'm going to hopefully use him as some trade fodder for some bits and bobs. But yeah, one a set will do me from now because I'm never owning the lot of them. So yeah, but really interesting. Like a little sad, really, to see them come down so much, honestly. But I was hoping that just the older 12 went down a little, and then but like actually some of the set 2 ones are as low as the set 1 down. Ones now. Yeah. I'm glad I ended up pulling the Hercules and the Pete at the same time, which was pretty fun. Like not in the same pack, but in the same group of packs. And I'm glad that I just got rid of them basically within an hour to trade for a bunch of stuff. Because they went down. And honestly, I expect them to continue to go down a little bit. I mean, they will until they stop printing the set, and then they'll trickle back up again. But it's going to be a long tail, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gen Con cards were compared to D23 cards. D23 comparison has faded and may never return. Yeah, exactly. So D23, I mean, who knows what they'll do next year for D23.
Yeah,
Gotta start now looking as to whether that's going to be a thing and whether we need to go.
I
But
know.
it's still you're still not going to get that perfect storm of
No.
the $50 for the set, and they let you buy 2 on the first day, and already the buzz was there to sell them so high.
Well,
And
and they only, I think it's estimated there were only like 1,000 of those. And it's like, if Ravensburg has shown us anything, it's that they want this to be accessible.
Yeah.
So I highly doubt that they, short print promos for D23 next year. I don't think we'll ever see such demand for Lorcana cards as we did for D23 cards. I think they will forever be the most expensive, most sought after Lorcana cards, probably.
I think so, yeah. Unless they did something. I wouldn't necessarily mind if they did this. The only thing I think they could do is print some kind of like winner card for like a Worlds or something.
Yeah.
Like
I'd love that.
A really fancy gold Mickey Mouse or something, and it was a 1 of 1. That kind of thing. I had no problem with it because like as long as the actual core game pieces are available, then I'm absolutely fine with these chase variants being difficult to get and being expensive. I'll be honest with you. I think I said this on the show as well. I didn't really love the idea that they made the promos. I loved the fact that the promos had the event stamp on them and they were only available at that event. I had no problem with it at all. I had no problem with them being expensive and difficult to get because that's what a promo should be for me personally. As long as the regular version of the card is accessible and available, then make it difficult and expensive. I'm fine with it. So. I would love somebody to have a gold-plated Mickey Mouse. I think that'd be great. All right,
I would love it.
Let's move into the second half of our show. Then we started off covering Inklands. Now we're going to look at some more sort of news of the now. I guess Inklands is future. Now we're going to take a look at some of the events that have been happening and some of the other news that's happened in this week. Brandon, do you want to take away?
Sure. So there's a couple tournaments that have happened over the past week or two. One of them is the Ludo Trotter Cup, I think is how it's pronounced. It was a French Lorcana tournament. There were 198 participants, so almost 200 participants. I think that was bigger than Miami. So I think that's bigger. That might be the biggest Lorcana tournament to date, at least in person. And we got some tournament results. Obviously, it was for Rise of the Floodborn. This happened back on December 3rd. Basically, the top 8 was 5 Ruby Amethyst, all of them running some variation of all the bounce stuff with Goat and all that. 2 Amber Steel and 1 Ruby Sapphire were in the top 8. So I think we probably touched on this last week, but Ruby Amethyst bounce is just good.
Yeah.
And right now, at least, there doesn't seem to be much that is stopping it.
Not at all, no. I don't. Yeah, the only thing that's, for me personally, seeing it at a more local level, the only thing that's really managing to get any headway against it is the direct damage of steel. Seems to be the only real thing that deals with it. You need to kill. You just need to kill stuff straight away.
Yeah.
One thing I find quite interesting is very few of these run Arthur. And like the 2 top decks at my locals both run playsets of Arthur and get so much value out of him. The one build I'm thinking of particularly is Arthur and the Pinocchio, the 2-drop quest for 3 Pinocchio and Arthur is insane. It's so gross.
Yeah, I'm pretty surprised by that too, because I see Arthur a lot now. I don't know if maybe like things have updated since this tournament, because again, this was
a little earlier,
the 7th, or sorry, the 3rd. So it was a little bit earlier, but yeah, I mean, Arthur is just like value. I mean, there have been I can't tell you how many games I've lost where they like, I be prepared, and they're at 16 lore, and they just play an Arthur, and I don't have any other way to remove him, and
Yeah.
I'm just like,
Yeah.
if you
Next
have
turn.
another character,
Yeah.
you win next turn, basically.
Yeah, basically whatever you play. Yeah, and even
so,
if it's goat, then it's even worse, right? Goat,
yes.
goat coming down on that final turn. It's like 1, 2, 3, 5 lore, right? They can be at 15 and just win the game. It's crazy.
Yeah, like there's plenty of spell books in these lists too. It's like, if they've got spell book, if they've got goat, if they've got Arthur, any of those, and any way to utilize those even a little bit is just like so much value. Hard to stop, really. And it's like you said, the people that I've talked to about trying to stop this deck have basically told me the same thing, that the thing that is having the most success is steel, and just being able to banish the thing as soon as it comes down for relatively cheap. There's a couple songs in steel that you can sing to do damage rather than having to hard play, which just kind of feeds into that Amethyst Steel value engine. And you'll see there's a couple of Amethyst Steel decks in this as well. And
Amber
I mean, we've
Steel.
touched on it already. Yeah, sorry, Amber Steel. We've touched on it already. It's just a big value engine deck, being able to do a bunch of stuff way earlier than it's supposed to. Being able to shift Queen on 2, so now you can sing 5-cost cards, or Cinderella being able to sing 3-cost stuff on turn 2. Honestly, like, the Ruby Amethyst deck is very different than it was in the first set by quite a big margin.
Yeah. Well, it was the first set Ruby Amethyst was, I'm going to entropy you out of the game. I'm just going to get rid of everything you try and do until you've got nothing left. And then I'll play 2 big things and just quest for a few turns. Right. That was basically the control deck, Whereas this plays very differently, yeah.
Yeah, and it's a lot more aggressive. It kind of can stay that way throughout the whole game, or even in the decks that I've played that try to stop this deck. It really doesn't matter if you stall them out, because the moment you run out of stuff to stall them out, they just play all their bounce stuff and gain a bunch of lore in a couple turns.
Again.
Yeah, and so, yeah.
There's the Amber Steel decks I'm looking at here are all as you'd expect them, really. Interested to see some Lawrence play here. The guy, the 4/4 for 2. I mean, yeah, it's an interesting one. That I suppose it's not terrible, but it's interesting that it's finding a slot. But yeah, pretty much all the Amethyst Ruby decks are exactly how you'd expect them. Some of them run the Aladdin package, some of them don't. But really, they're pretty samey. But I get it. I love a lot of these cards. I love the little Queen of Hearts Russia. I actually really like the 5-drop Queen of Hearts as well, that lets you draw on challenging. I know her and Shere Khan aren't seeing much play competitively, but I'm really enjoying both of them. I'm getting a lot of value out of there. Rapunzel is there with the Lawrence. Yes, I suppose Rapunzel is good with the Lawrence. This is the only one that really jumped out at me on this set. It's actually a Ruby Sapphire build that's running the items package. Didn't that burn like hot and fast, that deck? Thank you very much to Jim Hawkins, Jonti, for the donation. We appreciate your support, buddy. Jonti, do you still have your Gen Con playmat? Because those are at like 2K on eBay. Trevor then says he has it and he plays on it. I did have it. I did play on it. I have lost it.
What? You lost it?
Yeah.
How?
I don't know if it was taken or if I put it somewhere.
Jonti.
But yeah, it was somewhere at the store, and now I don't know where it is. And I think it's probably somebody's saw it and wandered out with it, but I'll never know.
Oh no!
I know.
That's my gosh, dude.
I wasn't gonna mention it anyway because it's genuinely like affected my mental health.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I mean, there was a brief moment after Gen Con when I came back. I didn't know where I had put my one enchanted Artful Rogue Mickey, and I thought I had lost it, and I was just like I couldn't do anything until I found it. And I cannot imagine what what you're doing.
I know it's somewhere. It's not, but it's not where I put it. A lot of people are saying 2K down the drain. It's not 2K down the drain because I would have never have sold it. So
Yeah,
like that
I would have been in the same boat,
that doesn't fuss me. It was played with and it was getting tatty already. But it was the thing that I haven't got anymore is that incredible piece of of a memory of an amazing week with Brandon, all the other awesome guys there. So. Yeah, that's what I'm missing. I'm not missing $2,000 because it would never have been $2,000 for me. It would have been I would have played with that until it was threadbare as my sort of standard. I would have held it up as a standard bear. So, but yeah, maybe it'll rock up. Maybe it'll be under a box or something. But yeah, I kind of turned the place upside down and couldn't find it. So. Never mind. It was signed by Nick Cole as well. So I'll never be able to replace it. I wouldn't really want to either. So yeah, incredible flex. Yeah, exactly. It was a really great flex. Yeah, that's what I've lost. I haven't lost $2,000. I've lost a pretty cool flex.
Yeah, there's a guy that went to Gen Con that goes to my locals. He's an awesome dude. His name is Trey, and he won the first round of those starter deck tournaments. So he has a play mat. He has one of those, and that's what he brings to play every week. And I just get jealous every time I see it.
That's exactly what I do. I just lay it out. And I would even lay down and say, "Don't mind me. I'm just putting my top 8 Gen Con play mat down."
Signed by the artist.
Right.
Yeah. Man.
Yeah. Another Ruby Amethyst build here. This one is. Sorry, I know you can't see what I'm looking at. This was the William Leclerc one. This is a little bit more low to the ground, using the a lot of 1-drops, the Minnie, the Maleficent, the Olaf Pascals, all that sort of stuff. And again, this is a really aggro-y build of this this deck. And this one does run the Arthur. I will say this also runs the 3-drop Minnie Mouse. I've been having a lot of fun with her in my Ruby Amethyst. Yes, the evasive one. Because it's a good quester, which is the one thing I'm kind of struggling with in the deck I've got at the moment, is that if it does come across a good aggro build, it struggles to keep pace. Also, fantastic target for Teeth and Ambitions as well. That 1/3. Yeah. We'll take a teeth to the ass all day long, which is so a lot of fun. I've been having a lot of fun with that. And then the other one we've got to look at today. This was posted on Twitter from 20 Law Pro. This was a Pixelborn tournament actually, which I think must be the first one of these that we've covered, and I think it was free.
Yeah, it was a $200 prize pool free entry tournament. So first place got $100, second $50, third and fourth $25.
That's awesome.
And I think there were. I remember somebody told me earlier it was like just under 80 players ended up playing in the tournament. So I thought it was pretty significant. That community over there is very competitively driven. There's a lot of guys over there who I think do a lot of work in the competitive world and sort of driving what, like the Ruby Amethyst decks that we see now. They're the ones testing them all day and that kind of thing. So I thought it was worth covering because it was probably a lot of really good competition. And to no one's surprise, we see almost the exact top 8 that we saw at the Ludo Trotter Cup. It was 5 Ruby Amethysts, 2 Amber Steel, and 1 Amber Amethyst instead of 1 Ruby Sapphire in the top 8. I'm trying to pull them up now again so I can see. But yeah, see, I don't see Arthur in the number 1 place either.
Or number 2. And interestingly, this number 2 one is actually playing a couple of those Peter Pan shadows. I mean, has the Mary and the Fox there, I guess, for it. But and Rafiki, he's playing Rafiki's as well.
Yeah.
So it has got quite a few rush targets there to hit So yeah,
That's an
that's a
interesting
one.
build. I like that.
Yeah.
It's a little bit different than just the normal like bounce stuff.
Yeah.
As soon as I saw the Peter Pan Shadow, I thought that looked like such a fun card to play
Mhm.
with, having your rush characters with evasive,
Yeah.
to be able to quest. And
Well,
so
it's interesting that it turns it into a mid range deck. That single card
mhm.
turns the relatively control-y deck into a mid range deck because if I play
Yeah.
that, I can instantly start saying, well, actually, I'm just going to quest now,
Yep.
and I'm now aggro, and you can't deal with it.
Mhm.
Like Maui is reckless, to be fair, but Rafiki, Mim,
Yeah.
the 2-drop queen, all of those can suddenly start just and like I say, I'm playing the evasive Minnie as well. She can just sort of shift into you just shift into sort of quest mode if you need to as well. So
Mhm.
it's really good for that reason. Yeah, I mean these. I just look like I'm looking at the same deck with just the cards in a
Yeah.
different order here. That was a bit more amethyst heavy. Yeah, number
Yeah,
5
these
is the only interesting one really, which is the amethyst amber build.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy to see Hey Hey and the same with this build
He's
shining a
great.
little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm again another one that I'm surprised I'm not seeing more of because in my locals he's absolutely messing the place up. Like he's
Mhm.
people are getting a lot of value out of him, bouncing him back. Yeah, just a good little card. I think. I feel like he'll probably settle in somewhere as like the 2-drop of choice. Honestly, I actually feel like this deck is obviously quite a quest heavy deck, so they are still running the
Mhm.
Simba Protective Cub, but I always feel like Hey kind of takes his slot in a more control-y build.
Sure,
Yeah.
yeah. And I look at Hey Hey coming down with Stitch and I'm like, it's almost as good as Simba. Like it doesn't stop stuff from being challenged,
Mhm.
but if something challenges your Hey Hey because it got exerted that turn, it
Yeah.
just bounces back to hand,
Yeah,
So
yeah, and then you get the trigger off Stitch again if Stitch is still around,
right.
which you won't get off Simba, So yeah,
Mhm.
arguably better in some ways. And then yeah, 6th place is an Amber Steel build. It's running some Snow
The
Whites.
Snow Whites, yeah. I've
Yeah,
seen some people recently playing with those. I think it's a little bit of a bait. I don't think Snow White is the best thing. I
I
mean, obviously, this person placed high in the tournament, so they probably know more than I do. But in my opinion, if you're gonna do the recursion thing with Snow White, I kind of would prefer to play Hades
I would still play
instead.
Hades, yeah. I would. When I was playing with Amber in my Amber Ruby deck, I tried the Snow White for a little bit, and I just found it to be too slow. I
Hmm.
found that I was getting so much more value out of the Hades on 4 than I was out of her on turn 7. Really, I mean,
Yeah.
I guess you could shift her onto the smaller one, which is probably why that smaller one's there with the healing. Well, the healing's
What I
probably
was
going to
even gonna
help with
say,
Simba and stuff, but
with the smaller one, it's taking up so much space in
yeah.
your deck because yeah, it does get better if you can shift it. But yeah, that's, 6
Yeah.
cards in your deck that could be some other stuff
Well,
when
just
you could just
if you
play
look at this
Hades.
list, how many 2s of there is,
Yeah,
and I'm just like, well, I would much rather play sets of
just
those.
increase. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, just
um,
increase your consistency.
yeah, 100%. Yeah, and then 7 is number Ruby Amethyst, and then number 8 is yeah, more what I would expect to see from
Hmm.
a Amber Steel build. Then with
Yeah,
the Queen. Oh, she's so good, that Queen. Yeah,
so good.
the saddest part of me taking Amber out of my Ruby Amber deck was taking her away,
Hmm.
and it's kind of why I want to build Amber Steel just to get to play with her again because she's so fun.
It is. It's fun it's fun for her to come down so early. It's also fun for her to just sit there. I was playing some games this week where my opponent had played a queen and they were behind, but I couldn't quest
Yeah,
with any of my stuff because I knew like I wasn't far enough ahead that it didn't matter if
yeah,
they traded off. But I knew that whatever I quested with, the queen was just going to negate entirely, and they could get some free trades off of. So it's kind of funny that effect that she has, where
yeah.
she just what's the card's actual subtitle? Because I think it says it's something entrance. Um,
Oh,
let's
I
see if
don't
I
know.
can
I've closed
find
it
it.
down now.
commanding presence.
Yeah.
And I think that's a very fitting subtitle for the card because
She just kind of sits there and is like, "Go ahead,
do something.
yeah, go ahead and quest."
Yeah.
And do you know what? I never enjoy playing a Maui when he doesn't have a target. You know, I don't like playing Maui unless he starts smashing into something straight away. But my boss plays a discard deck, and it's kind of gross. And if you keep something in your hand, you're not getting it next turn. So
Yeah.
more often than not, I'm playing a Maui just to put him on the board rather than discard him. But he kind of has the same thing. It's like, go ahead and quest.
Yeah.
You know, Mary's sat here waiting for you, you know, and you know, and I don't think outside of that sort of weird little bubble where, you know, if I don't play this, it's getting discarded. I don't think I would want to play Maui, you know, without a target on the turn he comes out. But there is something quite nice about him just sitting there and being like, "What are you gonna do?"
Yeah, exactly.
All right, we move on then to the tabletop awards. We probably should have covered this last week, to be honest with you, but I think time got away with us a little bit. Tabletop awards, I believe, a relatively prestigious, you know, relatively big deal in the industry. You know, and the award for best ongoing card game went to Lorcana.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk about this today because specifically because of the last bit in the Dicebreaker article that I at least saw. I'll just read the quote real quick. Let's actually, I thought I had it right here. Yeah. Okay. So the first chapter has already been followed by the second set, Rise of the Floodborn, which has helped cement Lorcana as a breakthrough TCG deserving of its place alongside the big three. With gameplay smarts and that irresistible Disney magic, it's less the biggest TCG of the year and more the biggest TCG in decades. And that little snippet created a lot of conversation online about where Lorcana's place actually is in the big three, in the TCG, you know, like sphere as it is. I enjoyed seeing it because I've been in a similar mindset of, it's certainly not the biggest TCG right now. Maybe it's one of the more demanded TCGs, but certainly not the biggest. But I do believe that this card, I mean, it's the reason I sit here with you every Monday.
Yeah.
I think this card game is going to be one of the biggest ever. But there were a lot of people who had some interesting opinions, and I wanted to hear yours on this topic.
I think first of all, I think it's worth going right back to the award that it actually won, best ongoing card game, and I think it's worth pointing out what it means there. It's not necessarily saying that Lorcana is ongoing. It is saying that it is the best currently, or at least the one of note currently, within the ongoing card game industry. So the reason they call it ongoing card game is because they don't just want to talk about trading card games. They also want to talk about living card games. You know, things like Marvel Champions, Arkham Horror, that kind of thing. So I think it's worth pointing out that when the emphasis is this is the best ongoing card game, not the best ongoing card game. I know it's such a weird little thing.
Yeah.
But I think it's worth pointing that out in that yes, Lorcana isn't really, I don't think it's fair to say Lorcana is ongoing. It's, you know, it's been out less than a year. It's been, you know, it's had 2 sets. But what I think it is worth pointing out is that there hasn't been a launch with as much promise and as much further around it than probably Pokemon.
Yeah,
I think I genuinely don't think we've had anything since Pokemon that's had this kind of interest, mainstream appeal, just possibility of doing as well as it can do. Whether it's the best right now, I don't think that's fair to say, but quite honestly, when it says it, you know, it deserves its place alongside the big three, Of the big three, assuming they mean Magic, Pokemon, and Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yeah, that's my assumption.
Right. Like, as a store, we don't sell two of those. Like we we have a little bit of Pokemon, like maybe a couple of booster boxes of Pokemon. We don't sell any Yu-Gi-Oh at all, and Lorcana currently, and I know it's very early days, but currently every single week since Lorcana launched, since the first chapter launched, we have had more Lorcana players than we have had on our busiest Magic night.
Wow.
Like we get 28 to 35 people playing Magic. We had 43 people playing Lorcana on Saturday. Like it is genuinely our biggest turnout. So obviously that is a one store, one person, and also
Right.
not only is it one store, it's one store of two in the city that can sell it and has somebody who works there who is obsessed with it, right? So like I get that it isn't a fair sort of anecdote, but I like in one breath I will say I think it's a bit of a stretch to call it the best card game, but in the second breath I will say it's our best card game.
Yeah, I mean, you're not the only store that I've heard of that has had months or weeks where they are selling more Lorcana than they are of anything else. And like that's the most popular thing. That's not the case in my store. It's not the case in the stores probably within an hour radius of me. That could be because of lack of product. Maybe there's not as big of a demand here because all of those stores that I can think of do all three. They do Magic, Pokemon, and Yu-Gi-Oh. I haven't seen the Pokemon nights in a long time because I think they're on different nights. But I know like the Yu-Gi-Oh nights are pretty popular, and I know the Magic pre-release days are pretty popular too. Way more popular than the Lorcana nights. It's basically me, one other guy that shows up every week, and then one of the workers at the store who happens to really like Lorcana and is sometimes working when the league night is that show up. So, but yeah, I think to reiterate everything you said, I think it has some of the best promise, and I definitely think people should at the very least have their eyes on this card game, which I think a lot of people do. You know.
I think that's it. I think the only thing that can be really said about it is that it has the best chance than any card game has had as long as I've been working in this industry, I think. Honestly, we have a good Bandai player base. So outside of Magic and Lorcana, Bandai is sort of where it is for us. So we just had One Piece just celebrated its first anniversary.
Okay.
So their latest set came out and they did like a first anniversary tournament. We had 26 players for that. Very acceptable. Good numbers for a store of our size. Good fun day. So we are kind of an exception to the rule, really, in that we don't really do Pokemon. There isn't a single Yu-Gi-Oh card in the store. But Bandai is big for us and does well for us. Digimon and One Piece both do pretty good. Dragon Ball to a lesser extent, but still has a community for it. And also, card games in general are only a fraction of our store. We're a miniatures store first and foremost. Warhammer and Crisis Protocol, Legion, all of those are much bigger for us. So, but there's no card game has come along as long as I've been in this industry. Like I say, I genuinely don't think since Pokemon that has had the best chance at doing well than this has. And the only thing I keep hearing is that there isn't enough of it. That's it.
Yeah.
That's the only negative I keep hearing. And if they can figure that out, they can get the numbers right. I can't see any reason why it can't either make it the big four, or push one of the big three out. If that's how you want to. Like, I don't care. Like I said, as far as the big three goes for us, we don't sell two of them. So it's not something that I hold much weight in. But if it's something you care about, I don't think there's any reason why Lorcana can't even make it to the big four. Or like I say, overtake Yu-Gi-Oh probably.
Yeah. Well, speaking of your store, you guys ran a really, really cool charity event this weekend, right?
We did, yeah, and it was super good fun. This was a bit of a last minute thing, honestly. One of our regulars who doesn't play Lorcana himself, he's a big Magic player. But one of our regulars is a chef at a local school, high school that has a really big culinary department, sort of teaching kids how to cook. It's one of those occupational schools, where they're teaching trades and stuff. And it's not in the best area, and a good part of our city isn't the best area, full stop. And every year they do a big food drive. They take as much as they can from people, and they actually cook it up themselves there, and then make meals to go out to homeless people and people who are just sort of not doing so well, and are struggling financially and what have you. And he kind of came to us and he was like, "Oh, we're a little light this year. We could do with a load more. Have you got anything on that you can do for us?" And literally within a space of half a day, we came up with this event. So it was a bit risky because I think we organized it on the Tuesday, advertised it on the Wednesday, and did it on the Saturday. So I was a little worried with how it was going, and I think with a little bit longer we could have maybe got more of the room involved. You'll see on the little video that's looping here on the screen, we had 16 players. That was half of the Lorcana. There's another 16 or so players behind the camera just playing regular league play. But these people all very generously came along with cans and dried goods, and yeah, basically we said, rather than, because originally it was going to be bring some cans and hand them in and you can play a game and win a pack, but I said, well, let's not do that. Let's make it so that the cans get them something. So we did this sheet up here. So we handed these out, and it says once a turn. We had to specify that it's on your turn. Because that would have, we weren't adding instant speed interaction to Lorcana for the day. So once on your turn, you could spend a can to draw a card or return a card from the discard, or all of your opponents lose a law. You could ready a character, you could exert a character, or you could ink an extra card. And then all they had to do was hold a can up, and I would come over, take the can off them, let them resolve whatever trigger they were doing, and then they could carry on. And I tried to come up with stuff that features on cards. So thinking, well, it can't be that broken because you can do all of these. The only thing I said is you can only do each of them once a turn, but you could do multiple in a turn if you wanted to. So some people who bought a lot of cans with them, just every single turn went, there's two, I'm inking, I'm drawing an ink in. Before I do anything else, I'm drawing a card and inking a card. The ink card, did people enjoy the added chaos? They did very much, and I think the reason why it worked so well is, one, we told them it was going to be a bit crazy. We advertised it as, this is going to be a weird game. And the prize, we ran it multiplayer pods first of all, because we thought that was probably, we felt like if you were just playing one-on-one, you probably wouldn't want to go too heavy on these against some person sat opposite you. But in a multiplayer game, you would almost create a bit of a kingmaker if somebody started really going ham, So we felt like a multiplayer game worked quite well. And then basically each pod, the winner of the pod won a pack. So the stakes were relatively low. I mean, people were still happy to take a pack, but for the most part, the stakes were relatively low. It was kind of wacky. It was just a way to get cans of food off people, really. But it worked incredibly well, to the point where I'm already looking forward to next year when I can actually advertise this with a couple of weeks notice, and and make it I want this to be a huge thing. I want to fill the room with people doing this, and have people running around and doing it. So yeah, it was really good fun. The only thing I will say is ready a character with no caveats won every game.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The winning move on every game was, I'll quest, I'll pay a can, I'll ready it, I'll quest. And that was...
So there was no... You could just quest twice.
Yeah, exactly, It wasn't a LeFou. It was just ready. It was just ready the character, yeah. So That's maybe the only thing I would change is that they couldn't quest with the readier character, because it was, like I say, at that point it didn't really matter. Everyone played, like the shortest game maybe took 25 minutes, the longest game took 45 minutes. So they were still getting a session of playtime in there, and nobody really ran away with it. And then we did some other spot prizes. We still had a few sort of set one promos left over that just like people didn't pick up. So we had like 3 pins and 6 or 7 promos. So we just gave those out as spot prizes. Like the person who donated the most cans got one. The table that donated the most cans collectively all got a promo. The person with the lowest lore total out of all of the games got a pin. Which rather impressively was 0. So but Trina there, Fat Girl Fit Fam says it was so crazy, definitely something we'll be doing again. Yeah, so Trina and her son, I hope she won't be showing you this. Turn the sound down. So Trina and her son are sat, I'm going to go over to her now, I think, on this video, as you say. So there we go. Trina holding a can up there. So this is Trina and Vincent, her son. But then we also had Tim and Jason here. These are both staff members. Trevor is sat here. He was in the chat before earlier. These are it's all great because these are all regular players. These are people who come out every week and play in the league, and just wanted to do something a bit different and do a good cause. Most people just went to Dollarama or whatever and spent $5 on 5 cans, and some people went a lot harder. But yeah, no, it was really good fun. It was really good fun.
Yeah, I can't lie. When I saw this in my Twitter feed, I just immediately fell in love, because I was just like, what an awesome way to motivate people to do something like this. It's better for the community. It's like you're getting to play this game that you love, that you're already probably going to be at the shop playing. It's like you said, it's not a huge investment. You go to the dollar store, buy a couple cans of food, and then one of the most fun things, at least for me in card games, is to play absolutely broken stuff. And so being able to just do stuff you'd never be able to do, especially in a multiplayer format. I love multiplayer format. It's my favorite format. The couple times that I get to play it at a store further away from me is just phenomenal, because it caters to new people, caters to experienced people. You can have a lot of fun interacting more than I feel like you do playing one-on-one against somebody that can feel a little bit more competitive and a little bit more, I don't know, just tense than it needs to be. Multiplayer feels a lot more fun, and to just throw more chaos into that. Everybody in the video at least looks like they're having a grand time. It's it's phenomenal. I love this idea. Even if it was transitioned to, if you're just donating to a charity and you say, hey, for $1, you can, do these extra things and just raise money.
We've already thought about that. Honestly, I think there was a charm to them having to hold a can of peas up.
Which I
think it might lose a little bit if it's just holding up a dollar coin or whatever. But there are multiple food banks in the city. They're always looking for stuff. So this is 100%. This isn't a Christmas thing. This isn't the sort of thing you would have to run at Christmas. These places are always desperately looking for donations and stuff. And you can, we even said to people, as long as it's in date, clear your cupboards out. This isn't even something you've necessarily got to put money into. You can just, go and clear your cupboards out, grab some peas and some soup and whatever, and bring it down. There's going to be somebody who's much more grateful of it than it's sitting in the back of your cupboard. So yeah, no, it was great fun. I would definitely do it again, and it was it was really really good fun. Shakes the KD, the craft dinner. It was great. I'd definitely do it again.
I just had to highlight that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Yeah, that was Brandon said we're going to talk about this. But yeah, no, it was good. So there we go. That was this week in Ink. What does your week in Ink look like?
My week in Ink is probably running by the LGS this Wednesday. Hopefully the same guy shows up and we can play a couple games, and I'm probably done buying packs for now. I'm kind of at that point in my collection where I don't have everything, and I don't have close to everything, but I have enough that I don't think it makes sense to continue to buy sealed product. updating the TCG Player store and getting stuff shipped
That's
out
good.
on
Yeah,
that
I'm
as
really excited
well.
for you for that. That's
It
awesome.
was.
I would 100% do one. You can't do it from Canada, unfortunately, but I would.
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
yeah, yeah. It's US only, unfortunately. Yeah.
Wow, I didn't realize that. Yeah, I started to set one up a long time ago and then stopped because I didn't really understand what I was doing. But now I've priced a lot of stuff out so that I know sort of like what it costs for me to ship stuff out, so I'm not just like losing money selling people cards. But it's a lot more fun than I was expecting. And you make a little bit of money back that you spend on the game.
Yeah,
So
that's awesome.
just gonna be updating that. Other than that, released a video yesterday going over some of the stuff we talked about today.
Mm-hmm.
We've got other videos in the chamber that I'm probably going to be working on as well. Is it? Yeah, that's pretty much it, I think, in regards to Lorcana.
Yeah, I'm doing the same really. Just cracking on. I'm playing in a little constructed tournament on Saturday. It's just the one that the store's running, but I've organised it for a time I'm not working, so I can play it myself. I think we currently have 16 people signed up, so expecting that to hit 20 something on the day. So that'll be good fun. It's going to be, there's a trove, we've got a trove and a mat, a trove and a play mat, and then anything else, like once they're paid for, everything else will just be like credit. So it'd be good fun. Squizzomatic says, tuning in late, but love the idea of the spend a can event. We are going to change the ready and exert a character to be draw a random card that they can play for free that turn, no matter the card. I mean, that seems really broken, but that's fine. Like, that's fine. It can be broken. That's okay. The only thing I will say is, look, is going back on that list and doing it again, I would make the readier character not be able to quest. So I'd make it LeFou, basically. Only because, not that I think it's necessarily broken. Like, they're all broken. You shouldn't be able to do any of them. But it was just that every game won by somebody just holding a can back and being like, well, I quest my 3 lore quest to play a can quest again. And it was like, and every kind of table went, oh, okay. There was never that big end at each one. So that's the only thing I will say is maybe don't let it to quest again. But otherwise, I think it was fine. I'm still buying my pack a week. We have a couple of boxes each week for league players, and you can buy a pack. And I'm still buying my pack because I don't know, it's $7 and it might be an enchanted. I'm just I'm a gambler. What can I say?
Yeah, I bought 3 packs last week when I really didn't need to, so I might like our store's at the point where they have some. I think they still have some, and now they're not limiting it. But I'm not gonna go spend a ton of money on it. So
I wouldn't like run out my way to get it. Like some of the game stores around by it, like the GameStop and the Toys R Us, I still think have product, but I'm not sort of driving out to them to get it. But when I'm at the store playing, I'll buy a pack, and it's a trade fodder if nothing else.
Yeah, exactly.
I will say the pack I opened this week was absolutely awful. The rares were Tuk Tuk and Cobra Bubbles. So the worst pack ever. So I'm feeling that next week must be better.
Yeah.
All right. There we go. Anything else? Where can we find you, Brandon, before next week?
You can find me on YouTube at b224. Link will be in the description under this. You can also find me on Twitter and on Instagram at b224yt. If you see me on TCG Player, the store is b2 store. I don't think there's a 24. I think it's just b2 store,
not 24.
Yeah, there you go. So you can buy from me or don't buy from me. I don't care. It's just kind of to make back some money, but I appreciate the support if you do. And I think
you know where they're coming from, and he's accountable if there's any problems.
Exactly.
Right? You can just come in the chat next Monday and start kicking off.
Yeah, you can bomb all my videos with comments. Please do send so many comments about how mad you are. Please dislike every video. Throw up that engagement.
Exactly. Awesome. All right. Let's see if we can nail this sign off, right? Because there's one thing we haven't quite nailed yet.
Am I supposed to do something for this sign up?
It says in the script that until next week in Ink, that was this week in Ink.
This week in Ink.
But we have to decide how we're going to say it. So do you want to say the first half and I'll say the second half? and then we'll
Okay.
wave.
Okay, wait. You're gonna have to repeat that
Okay.
because I
So
absolutely didn't catch it.
you say until next week in ink.
Okay. Until next week in ink, right?
Try again without the right.
Okay. And until next week in ink.
That was this week in ink.
Bye
Bye
guys. Love you guys.